me, and if you're a true crime lover like me, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I try my best to post twice a week, Mondays and Fridays. Mondays I post very interesting true crime cases. Fridays I have a series called Freaky Friday where we discuss all things freaky. So if any of that interests you, you might as well stick around and join the growing family. Today's first comment winner is Paula Taylor. It says, so excited for another one. So shout out to you. And if you want to be the first comment winner, you would have to comment being the first person. Of course, it's self-explanatory. So today I am going to be reading my true crime book, my favorite, my handy dandy true crime book. In today's story, we're going to be talking about the alligator theory. Now, this case threw me for a loop. I'm pretty sure many of you may have heard of this case or probably haven't. But this case definitely has a twist to it, so make sure you pay close attention. So let's go ahead and jump into today's video. Sit back, relax, grab a snack, and enjoy this true crime book. Warning, this video may contain details of graphic content. This channel is for mature audiences only. Some viewers might find this disturbing. At the southwest corner of Georgia, where it meets the border with Florida, the Chattanooga and Flint rivers join from Lake Seminole. The lake was artificially formed by the Jim Woodruff Lock and Dam in the 50s. From there, the water flows 500 miles south through the Apalachicola River toward the Gulf of Mexico. The shallow water was full of stumps from trees that were there before the lake was formed. Y'all, this is like a shadow. I don't know from my window. I have no idea. The stumps created problems for boaters that use the lake for fishing and duck hunting, but that didn't discourage 31-year-old Mike Williams. Every chance he got, he would make the 50-mile drive from Tallahassee 22 years later, he was probably making probably like $500,000 would be probably today's money a year. December 16th, 2000 was a special day for Mike and Denise. It was their 6th wedding anniversary. They had plans to celebrate that evening, but Mike wanted to start the day with a quick trip to the lake for some duck hunting. It was mid-December and very cold and stormy. Really, in Florida, I'm surprised. But he was determined to get some hunting in. Mike woke up early, grabbed his gear, loaded up his Ford Bronco, and towed his boat out to Lake Seminole before dawn. Leaving that early in the morning, Mike should have been home long before noon, but when he hadn't returned home that afternoon, Denise was frantic. I bet she was. Mike wasn't answering his cell phone, so she called her father, who then called Mike's best friend, Brian Winchester. Together, the two men drove out to the lake late that afternoon to look for Mike. When they arrived at the boat launch where he usually parked, his Bronco was nowhere to be found. They searched the area, and just before nightfall, they found his Bronco and boat trailer parked 25 yards away at a muddy boat launch that he normally would never use. It would have been very unlike Mike to park there when his normal boat launch was available. As darkness fell, the wind picked up and the temperature dropped to 19 degrees. The wind and pouring rain made a further search impossible, so they waited until morning. The next day, Denise's father, Brian Winchester, keep that name in mind, Brian and Denise, keep those two names in mind. And the next day, Denise's father, Brian Winchester, and the Fish and Game Department continued their search for Mike. That morning, they found Mike's boat about 300 yards from the boat launch. Strangely, it was 300 yards in the opposite direction that the strong winds had blown that night. Inside the boat was a shotgun still in its case, although it wasn't the shotgun that Mike normally used for duck hunting. They also found hunting equipment and duck decoys, but there was no sign of Mike. Searchers assumed that Mike's boat may have hit a stump in the lake and that he had been thrown overboard. I just made up my whole word. With his hip waders boots on, divers were sent to search the murky lake. Helicopters scoured the lake from the skies. Hundreds of man-hours were put in by several law enforcement agencies. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, but Mike had simply vanished. as the lake was filled with stumps and his hip waders were missing. Law enforcement assumed that Mike had fallen overboard and drowned. His boots had most likely filled with water and pulled him under. The lake was also known for being alligator infested, and it was believed that after he drowned, he had been eaten by alligators. The case was treated only as a missing persons case. 6 months later, a hunting cap was found floating on the surface of the water. Police thought it might have belonged to Mike Williams and sent divers into the area. In the same area, they found his hunting vest, his still working flashlight, his hunting license, and his pair of hip waders. What is hip waders or water? I don't know. I'm gonna have to Google it. In the state of Florida, a missing person can only be declared deceased if they've been missing for 5 years. I did not know that. But only 8 days after Mike's belongings were found in the lake, Denise Williams successfully petitioned the state to have his death certificate issued. She probably did that so she can get some insurance money. With the valid death certificate, she was now able to collect Mike's 2 life insurance policies, totaling over $1.5 million. As the years went by, Mike's mother, Cheryl Williams, wasn't buying the accidental death theory. A mother knows when something's not right, or they just know that something doesn't sound right. She saw several gaping holes in the official story and started her own investigation. I know that's right. I would have did that too for my baby. Cheryl wanted a criminal investigation opened into his disappearance, but Mike's widow, Denise, threatened to cut off access to her grandfather, Inslee, if she did. Ultimately, Cheryl lost access with her granddaughter and pursued the death of her son. The first thing that stood out to Cheryl was that none of the items found 6 months later after Mike's disappearance seemed like they had been submerged for 6 months. The hat and jacket were pristine and free of mud or algae. The hip wader boots had no teeth marks, nothing to indicate an alligator attack. Even his hunting license was still legible after spending a supposed 6 months in the murky lake. She also contacted alligator experts that supplied her with an important fact. Alligators don't feed in temperatures below 40 degrees. They go into a state called brumation, which is similar to hibernation. Alligators become lethargic and their metabolism slows down significantly. They dig themselves into a bank of the lake and go dormant until the weather gets warmer. The temperature when Mike disappeared in December was well below freezing. There was no possibility that he could have been eaten by alligators. Additionally, alligators don't eat people whole. When alligators do police Cheryl found, Mike's boat was full of gasoline when it was found. If he had fallen out of the boat while it was running, the boat's motor was designed to circle endlessly until it ran out of gas. Mike's friend also verified that he would never have worn his hip waders while driving the boat. He would only put them on once he reached a hunting spot. The most significant sign for Mike's mother was the fact that his widow, Denise, was issued a death certificate after just 6 months and awarded the life insurance claim. There were 2 policies, one of which was for $1 million, written just 6 months before he vanished. Wow. See, it's some dumb criminals, I swear. Dumb. Just stupid. The insurance agent that sold the policy was Mike's best friend, Brian Winchester. 5 years after Mike's disappearance, Brian Winchester and Denise Williams were married. They was plotting, y'all. They was plotting. This solidified Cheryl Williams' suspicions. Mike Williams was not in that lake. She knew it. She spent years trying to get investigators to take a second look at the case. Every Sunday, Cheryl could be found in Bradfordville holding a giant missing sign on the side of the road in the hope that someone might see his face and remember something. She took up donations and paid for huge billboard signs, flyers, posters, and websites. Nothing seemed to help. Cheryl never gave up. She sent over 240 letters to the then governor of Florida, Rick Scott. Every single letter went unanswered. Now that's messed up. She regularly placed full-page ads in the Tallahassee Democrat newspaper. This is an open letter to Governor Rick Scott that was written by Cheryl. Dear Governor Scott, 15 years ago today, December 16th, 2000, my son Mike Williams supposedly drowned in Lake Seminole, Sneads, Florida, while on a solo duck/hunting trip. After a 2-week search of the lake, Mike's body was never found. I was told by Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission officers that my son fell out of his boat, drowned, and was eaten by alligators. Governor Scott, there is only one problem. Alligators do not eat in cold water. They hibernate. It would have been psychologically impossible for an alligator to eat anything, much less a 5'10", 180-pound man. Mike was declared dead 6 months after he disappeared, when planted evidence surfaced in the lake. His wife collected millions of dollars in life insurance, and then got married to his best friend. It took me 3.5 years to get a criminal investigation into Mike's disappearance. Because of this investigation, I lost access to his daughter. FDLE has been the lead investigating agency since February 2004. I still do not know what happened to my son. His case is now considered an active cold case. Nothing is being done to find Mike or his murderer. investigator, quote, "Miss Williams, you no longer have an investigation because you don't do things the right way," end quote. In other words, Governor Scott, I talk too much. Governor Scott, I have written a letter to you every day since you took office. You do not see my letters because they are sent over to FDLE, the very agency I am complaining about. Governor Scott, would you please appoint a special prosecutor from another part of the state to investigate my son Mike's disappearance? As a parent yourself, can you imagine the undying agony of not knowing where your daughters are for the past 15 years, while simultaneously being lied to, ignored, and being called crazy by law enforcement officials when the facts clearly prove otherwise? All efforts fell on deaf ears, but she never gave up hope. By 2016, the marriage between Denise and Brian Winchester was falling apart, as it should, because karma, duh. Things had begun to sour in 2012 due to Brian's sex addiction. And Denise filed for divorce in 2015. On August 5th, 2016, just before the divorce was to be finalized, Winchester told a friend that he thought the police were after him, and that once she divorced, he was convinced that she would, quote, say something about this guy who died 10 or 12 or 15 years ago, end quote. Yeah, that guilt eating him up. Brian Winchester hid in the back of his wife's car and waited for her to arrive. When she got into the driver's seat, she felt a gun barrel jammed in her side as he climbed over the seat. Winchester grabbed her phone and told her to drive. He told her that because she had to block his texts and refused to take his calls, he had no choice. He held her against her will for over an hour until she finally pulled into a drugstore parking lot and parked next to the front door. He threatened to take himself out if she divorced him, telling her he had nothing to live for. Eventually, she talked him down and agreed to not tell the police he had kidnapped her. After he released her, Brian apologized for what he had done, and she drove straight to the police station. Brian Winchester was arrested for kidnapping, domestic and armed burglary. 2 of the charges were felonies. Denise asked for a restraining order and claimed she was so distraught that she hadn't been able to eat or sleep for weeks. Winchester was held without bond. Mike's mother was elated with the news of Brian and Denise's breakup. I would have been too. And after 16 years, it gave her new hope that she might be able to find out what happened to her son. Quote, Brian's not going to let Denise run around alone with all that money. I'm praying he doesn't take himself out. I'm praying he'll tell us what actually happened, end quote. That's what she said. She added that she was alone among her family and holding out hope that her son was still alive. Brian Winchester sat in jail for over a year awaiting trial. During the trial, prosecuting attorney told the media that he hoped that the case would help solve the disappearance of Mike Williams, but there was no mention of Mike at all during the court proceedings. Finally, in December 2017, Winchester was sentenced to 20 years in prison for the kidnapping plus another 15 years of probation. The day following Bryant's sentencing, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement called a press conference. They had found the body of Mike Williams good. After 17 years, Mike Williams' remains were found buried, at the end of a dead-end road just 5 miles where he grew up, 40 miles from the lake. The body had actually been discovered 2 months earlier, in October, as part of a plea deal. They had waited until after Brian Winchester's sentencing to announce it. Florida Department of Law Enforcement brought 30 workers to the area to work 16-hour days for 5 days without even telling the workers what they were looking for. The search was to be kept confidential, and workers were told it was a training exercise. The work involved digging 9-foot deep holes with a backhoe and building dams and pumping water to keep the nearby Monkey Car Lake from destroying their work. Investigators searched through massive stacks of mud and found 98% of Mike Williams' bones. DNA from the bones matched that of his mother. Wow. That is so devastating. On May 8th, 2018, Denise Williams was arrested as she was on her way to her daughter's 19th birthday. Oh my God. I can only imagine. I forgot about the daughter. I can imagine how the daughter feels. I would honestly hate my mother. Well, hate is a strong word, but I would resent her so much. I would resent her. I think I would cut all communication off with her, honestly. She was charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and accessory after the fact. Remaining details were kept confidential until court. Prosecutors argued that Denise Williams conspired with Brian Winchester to kill her husband as early as 9 months before his death. At court, prosecutors played an audio recording of the police interview with Brian Winchester after his kidnapping arrest. Brian confessed to killing Mike Williams in cold blood, but claimed the whole thing was Denise's idea. I believe it. Brian Winchester took the stand to testify against Denise, where he told the court he had been having a relationship with Denise ever since high school. Oh my God. They both married other people, but continued their affairs off and on, and frequently double dated with their spouses. He explained that in 1997 their affair snowballed, and they began a steady affair for the last 3 years of Mike's life. Wow. Talk about stabbing somebody in the back. He was probably like smiling in Mike. Well, I know he was smiling in Mike's face, and Mike was probably confiding in him with him and Denise's relationship issues. Like, bro, So they would definitely forgive you for killing your husband. That's the more better option. That's just like Chris Watts. He felt bad for divorcing his wife, but killing her would be the better option. Instead, she plotted to kill her husband. Denise suggested several methods of getting rid of him, such as faking a boating accident in the Gulf of Mexico for both her husband and Brian's wife, Kathy. But Brian didn't want his children to grow up without their mother. Other ideas involved a robbery at Mike's work, but they eventually agreed to make it look like a hunting accident. On the day he disappeared, Brian invited Mike to the lake for a morning of duck hunting. Once they were out on the water, Brian waited until Mike put on his hip waiter boots and pushed him out of the boat, assuming he would sink to the bottom. But Mike didn't sink. He held on to a tree stump. Oh my God. Okay, first of all, can you imagine going out on a boat with someone that you trust just for them to turn on you? Like, the fear, the anger, like, oh my God. I can only imagine how Mike felt. Oh, poor Mike. This is devastating. Oh my God, I couldn't even imagine. Like, I trusted you. He probably trusted Brian with his daughter. He probably trusted Brian with his life. We all have that one friend that we just trust everything with. And that was probably Brian, just for him to stab Mike in the back for Denise. Ew. I'm sorry, but no. Brian finished the job by circling the stump in the boat and shooting Mike in the face with a shotgun. Okay, I knew that he got shot, but I didn't know he got shot in the face. Oh my God. With a shotgun blast to the face, the story of a boating accident wouldn't work. Brian probably panicked. That's why he shot him. He probably didn't know what else to do. Winchester then pulled Mike's body out of the lake, left the boat and belongings, and drove 40 miles away to bury Mike's body near Car Lake. There was no physical evidence linking Denise Williams to the murder. That didn't stop the jury from coming back with a guilty verdict on all charges, as they should. She's just as guilty. She's just as guilty. The following February, Denise was sentenced to life in prison. Cheryl Williams addressed the media only to say that justice had finally been served. And I'm so glad she was still able to see justice being served, even though this is unfortunately not going to bring her son back. At least she has the answers that she was looking for. So shout out to Mama Cheryl, because she is the GOAT. We all need a mama like Mama Cheryl. Denise was allowed to sign over the remainder of the insurance money to their daughter, Ansley. Poor Ansley, she don't have no daddy or no mom. Oh my God, Lord. This is just a case of selfishness and greed. That's all. These two individuals weren't thinking about nobody else but themselves, and that is fucking evil. I hate selfish people, y'all. I really do. I cannot stand selfish people. To their daughter Ansley, in order to avoid prosecution for insurance fraud. As part of the agreement, no part of the insurance money was to be used for Denise's legal defense. So that is the story of the alligator theory, or the alligator case. So, okay, there's there is a video of Brian Winchester taking the stand, and he's actually extremely remorseful, and he feels bad about what he did, of course, because he has gotten older and probably wiser, and just thought like, dang, what I did several years ago just was not the smartest thing to do. And I think he understands the damage that he has done. So I'm going to link that down below, and I encourage you all to watch the whole entire thing, because Brian literally admits to everything. I don't think he held anything back, honestly. So yeah, it's just him sitting and taking the stand to testify. And I believe there's a video of Denise